You know, we're often taught that knowledge is, well, it's about facts, figures, and what can be proven in a lab. But what if that's only one part of a much bigger story? Today, we're going to explore all the different ways we have of knowing and move beyond the idea that only one kind of truth holds all the answers.
Okay, so let's just dive right in with a huge question. Is scientific fact the only real knowledge? I mean, for a lot of us, that's the gold standard, right? It's what we default to. But what if that's just one piece of a much larger, much more interesting puzzle?
So first up, we're going to challenge this idea of a single universal truth. Let's explore a way broader definition of knowledge, one that actually makes room for all the different ways we make sense of the world around us. And here's the crucial starting point, the big idea. Knowledge isn't some static thing you just get or have. It's actually a dynamic relationship. It's the interaction between you, the subject, and the world, the object. It's an act, an experience.
And if knowing is a relationship, then it just follows that there can't be only one kind of knowledge. Think about it. We relate to the world in so many ways, practically, emotionally, analytically, symbolically, and each one of these relationships creates its own valid way of knowing.
So, how does this idea actually play out? Let's start by looking at two of the most familiar forms of knowledge, the everyday wisdom we call common sense and the superstructured approach of science.
Common sense. You can think of it as our original human operating system. It's that intuitive, practical knowledge we just absorb from living our lives. You don't learn it from a textbook, you get it through experience. It's passed down socially, and it's all fine-tuned for one main goal, helping us survive and get through the day.
Just let that sink in for a second. Before we ever had labs or peer-reviewed journals, we had this shared gut-level knowledge. It's the absolute foundation that everything else was built on. So to just dismiss it as unscientific is to totally miss the point of its incredible, time-tested value.
And this is where the difference becomes crystal clear. Common sense is subjective, it's spontaneous, it's all driven by our immediate practical needs. Science, on the other hand, is basically striving for the complete opposite. It aims to be objective, methodical, and it wants to explain the world using proof and super rigorous logic. They're not enemies, they're just different tools for completely different jobs.
The whole scientific approach is really defined by these core principles. It demands objectivity, where the researcher tries to step aside and just let the data speak for itself. It relies on controlled experiments to test ideas, methodical rigor to make sure the process is sound, and a rational, logical language to share what it finds without any ambiguity.
Galileo captured this ideal perfectly. The belief here is that reality has this underlying structure, like a code, that can be read and measured and understood through the truly objective language of mathematics, totally free from our messy subjective interference. Okay, but explaining the world isn't the only way to know it. Now we're going to get into forms of knowledge that deal with meaning and purpose and emotion and interpretation, all the stuff that you can't always measure with a ruler.
First up is myth. And it is so important to understand that in this context, myth does not mean a lie. Not at all. Mythic knowledge is a really powerful way that cultures establish a shared reality. It uses these symbolic stories and legendary characters not to describe the world literally, but to explain our place in it and to give our existence meaning.
Then, of course, we have art. And if science is always striving for objectivity, art absolutely thrives on subjectivity. It's a form of knowing that communicates what you just can't put into an equation. Feelings, emotional truths, the experience of beauty. Its language is symbolic, and its goal is to connect with us on a level that's sensory and emotional.
And then there's philosophy. You know, you can almost think of philosophy as the knowledge of knowledge itself. It's the tool we use to step back and critically examine all the other ways of knowing. Science, art, myth, all of it. It uses reason not just to understand what is, but to ask why things are the way they are, and to imagine how they could be totally different.
This quote from Karl Marx really gets to the heart of philosophy's active transformative mission. It's not about passively observing the world, it's about engaging with it. The ultimate goal isn't just to have a perfect interpretation, but to use that understanding to actively shape and improve reality.
So, where does all this leave us? We've got all these different ways of knowing. The real key is to see them not as competitors, fighting for the title of the one true truth, but as a complementary set of tools in our human toolkit.
And we can really map it all out right here. Each way of knowing has a vital, unique job to do. Common sense, that helps us adapt and survive. Science explains and describes. Myth gives us a sense of meaning.
Art lets us express and create, and philosophy gives us the tools to question everything and transform it.
Ultimately, it all kind of comes down to this. You wouldn't try to build a house with only a hammer, right? In the same way, we can't build a rich, meaningful, and functional human life by relying on just one way of knowing. We need the whole toolkit.
And that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. Take a second to look at your own life, your own way of thinking. Which of these tools do you find yourself reaching for most often? And, maybe more importantly, which ones might be gathering a little bit of dust?